All right, as we put our final touches to our preparation, let's quickly have a quick walkthrough on the 2023 past question. This question was written in 2023, and we are going to run through all the objective and the theory questions as we review together. So if you are new, thank you for always joining us, and help us to click on the subscribe button, like, share, and comment on this video so you can go to as many persons as possible as you are already in the 11th hour of preparation. So we're going to do this separately. We'll review the objective and then we'll now go to the theory in a very short time. So let's start with the objective. Question number 1. The rigid cell wall of plants is due to the presence of what? So you have cambium, you have cellulose, chlorophyll, chloroplast, and the cortex. So basically the answer to this question is your cellulose. Okay, the cellulose cell wall is responsible for the rigidity in the cell wall of plants. Question number 2, we are going to be very fast with this. Excess water in amoeba is removed by the contractile vacuole. Okay, so that's the organelle in amoeba that helps to remove excess water from its body. All right, the botanical name for maize is Z-maize. Okay, botanical name for maize is Z-maize. Arachis hypogel is your groundnut. Your Dioscorea alata is your yam. Your Lycopesicum esculentum is your tomato, and then your Musa candiversi is your banana. So the correct answer is option E, Z-maize, as our botanical name for maize. The next one, number 4. A meganucleus structure is found in, basically it's found in paramecium. Meganucleus controls the activities of the cell, whereas the micronucleus is the one that is responsible for reproduction in paramecium. Question number 5, they said use the diagram to label to answer question number 5 and 6. So that is the diagram of a simple bacterium cell. So that's a bacterium cell. Let's see the questions as we move on. Question number 5 says the diagram represents a, so we've talked about that already. The answer is a bacterium. So A is the correct answer. Which of the labeled parts represents the cell membrane? Which of the labeled parts represents the cell membrane? So let's look at the diagram again to find the parts that represents the what? That represents the cell membrane. So let's see. If you look at that closely, you see that number I will represent the cell wall. So this will be the cell wall. But the second part, which is this inner part here, will represent the what? The cell membrane. So II becomes the what? The correct answer. So the answer is supposed to be what? II. Cell membrane is II, option B. Alright, now let's move on to question number 7. The opening and closing of the stomata is regulated by the guard cells. Pay attention to this. The guard cells are the part responsible for the regulation, the opening and the closing of the stomata. We talked about this in the video we have just uploaded, the video on the walkthrough, the complete walkthrough. So check out that video. It's a massive 1 hour 30 minutes video that has a lot of these details. So that's why I even had to do this, because when I checked through these objective questions, wow, so many things were coming up from that video. I had to do this to help you to do well in your exam. So number 8, Hydra reproduces asexually by budding. So take note of that. You have conjugation in paramecium. You also have it in rhizopus. You also have binary fission fragmentation, but the correct answer there is budding for Hydra. Number 9, the following are used in controlling pathogens except, so the one that is not correct there is rehydration. All of antibiotics, antiseptics, high salinity, temperature can be used to control pathogens. Pathogens are germs. And then the next question, number 10, organisms in the same species living together in the same habitat form the same species living together in the same habitat, so they will form a what? They will form a population. So please take note of this. This is very, very important. Number 11, mycelium is present in basically all of fungi have mycelium, so molds become the correct answer. So option D is the correct answer. Now use the diagram below to answer question number 12 and 13. So this is a diagram of a spider, obviously, and then the diagram represents, so you see these questions are actually very simple questions. You don't need to fret, you don't need to worry yourself too much. You'll do very well. The part labeled II is used for, let's find II. So our eye is one of the legs there. So basically the leg is used for what? For locomotion. So let's find it. The correct answer there is movement. Okay, question number 14. We are doing this in a very short while, a very short time. The part of the flower which receives pollen grain is the stigma. Remember, pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the what? From the anther to the stigma. All these other parts are parts of the plant. The petal is the conspicuous part, the beautiful part. The sepal is the one that protects it in the bud stage, but the one that receives the pollen grain is actually the what? The stigma. So E was the correct answer there. So moving on to the next question. Let's see the next one. The next one says, a fertile soil has what? What does a fertile soil have? Can you pause the video and try to figure it out? But if you've done that, A is the correct answer. It must have adequate humus and mineral salts. Okay, high acidity, no. Inappropriate crumb structure, no. So the correct answer there is just option A. Number 16, changes in energy flow between organisms in a habitat is represented by the said changes in energy. So that's why you use a pyramid of energy to represent that. What's a pyramid? A pyramid is a what? Is a pictorial representation of a food chain. Okay, so you use a picture to represent it. So the correct answer there is a pyramid of what? Energy. Hope you are taking note of this. Number 17, which of the following causes desert encroachment? Desert encroachment is caused basically by overgrazing. Okay, overgrazing would cause desert encroachment. Now number 18, plants that grow in saline water are plants that grow in saline water habitats are known as halophytes. So halophytes are basically salt-loving plants. Xerophytes are dry areas, plants that grow in dry areas, and hydrophytes are plants that grow in water. They are water-loving plants basically. Cretinism, number 19. Cretinism is caused by the deficiency of thyroxine. Okay, so try and find out the deficiency diseases for all of this. It's also in the video we made yesterday, so there's a whole lot for you to go and look at that video. If you've not seen it, go and look for that video. It will help you in preparing for exams. The following are characteristics of rainforest except existence of canopies, yes, and presence of epiphytes, yes. Presence of deep-rooted plants, no. They don't really need deep-rooted plants because the nutrients are around the topsoil. Presence of thin bark, yes. Existence of trees existing in stories, yes. So the correct answer there was option C. Now the next one, which of the following is dispersed by wind? That's question number 21. So basically the best answer there, everybody knows that, is tridacts. Now the next 22, the mode of nutrition in bladderwort is carnivorous. Okay, the mode of nutrition in bladderwort is carnivorous, and we said it in the video we made yesterday that carnivorous, bladderworts need this carnivorous nature to supplement for nitrogen. They don't have enough nitrogen, so they use that to supplement for nitrogen, the insects they catch and all of that. Now an example of a xerophyte, talked about the xerophytes. Xerophytes are dry and plants that do well in dry area. Okay, desert loving plants. So a good example here is your cactus. So the vector 24, the vector that transmits malaria obviously is the what? Anopheles mosquito. So that's option B there. Hope you are getting these things down. The next one, let's try and see how we can round up. 25, water is transported from the roots to the leaves through the what? Through the xylem. So the xylem helps with the transport of water there. And the next one, use the diagram to answer 26 and 27. 26, the part labeled II is the seed. Okay, II would be the seed basically. So you have the epicarp, you have the mesocarp, you have the endocarp, and then you would have the seed. All right, and then you have the stalk up there as number 1. The fleshy parts of the fruit is labeled as IV. So the IV, the mesocarp, is going to be the fleshy parts. All right. 28, the structure that transports manufactured food from the leaves to other parts of the plants is going to be the phloem, and that process is called translocation. Okay, translocation. The transportation of food from the leaves to other parts of the plant is chiefly by the phloem. Now 29, the functional role of an organism in habitat is what? Ecological niche. We talked about this the other day. Okay, talked about this in the video we made as well. You need to check out that video. And then number 30, an example of a macro element is are the elements needed in large quantity by plants and animals. So nitrogen is the only macro element here. The other ones are micro, needed in minute or small quantities. 31. Which of the following structure in the ear helps in maintaining balance? Which of the following structures help in maintaining balance? So you have the semicircular canals as the part that is responsible for balance. The cochlear is the part responsible for hearing. Take note of that. Cochlear is for hearing. Semicircular canals is for what? Is for balance. The ossicles are the bones of the middle ear, and then the eustachian tube balances the air pressure from both sides of the ear. Okay, so take note of that. Now the upper part of the trachea, 32, is called the larynx. Okay, the larynx or the voice box. So take note of that. These are very, very important. These are the things you'll be expecting in your exams as you prepare. The type of joint that allows movement in all directions, as a matter of fact 360 degrees movement, is the ball and socket joints. Okay, so we're making progress. We'll soon be done with this guy. So moving on to the next one, 34. The reagents used in testing for the presence of starch is obviously your what? Your iodine. Benedict is used to test for reducing sugar like glucose. Ferlin also can be used for reducing sugar. Million is used to test for protein, and Sudan is used to test for fat. So take note of that. Retina is a structure in the eye. So retina is found in the eye. Okay, and then hepatitis, 36, is a disease of the liver. Okay, so take note of that. Hepatitis is a disease of the liver. 37. Digestion involves what? If you read through the options, you'd see that the best answer is option B, the breakdown of food into absorbable form for the body use. Okay, and then 38, as we move on, the enzyme in saliva is referred to as your ptyalin. So ptyalin is the enzyme in saliva, otherwise known as the what? Salivary amylase. Okay, salivary amylase basically. So that's where you have that as 38. 39. The part of the human ear that collects sound wave is your external ear, called the pinna. The pinna is the part of the ear that collects sound waves. And then number 40. Which of the following is a building block of protein? Which of them is a building block of protein? Your amino acid. Your amino acids are the basic building blocks of what? Of protein. Number 41. The following are plant hormones except. So auxin is there, cytokinin is there, ethine is there, gibberellin is there, and insulin is an animal hormone. Okay, so that's the best answer there. The organ of reproduction in angiosperms. Angiosperms are your flowering plants basically. It's your what? Your flower. Okay, that's the organ of reproduction in your angiosperm. Number 43. The union of the male and the female gametes, okay, is called what? Fertilization. When the male and the female gametes meet, it's called fertilization. Copulation basically is mating. Okay, the process of mating that leads to fertilization. And then so that's that for that question. Let's move to the next one. The next one here, number 44, it says example of an insect that undergoes incomplete metamorphosis. In incomplete metamorphosis, you have 3 stages actually. You have the egg, the nymph, and the adult. So the best answer here is the word cockroach. Cockroach undergoes incomplete metamorphosis. 45. Which of the following methods of reproduction is common in amoeba and paramecium? So the correct answer here is binary fission. In binary fission, a parent cell splits into 2 daughter cells, okay, that are clones of the parent. So that's binary fission. And then fertilization in flowering plants takes place in the, so where does it take place? Fertilization in flowering plants, it takes place in the ovum, because the pollen, when it drops on the stigma, will have to travel through the straw and goes all the way to the ovary, okay, and then the ovules. That's where fertilization takes place. So the correct answer is C, ovule. 47 to 49, we are given the diagram to use there. So let's label it quickly. This is going to be your fallopian tube, okay, or your oviduct. This is going to be your womb. So let's see the answer, or your uterus. So or uterine lining, as the case may be. So the part labeled I is obviously the oviduct, or your what? Fallopian tube. So you call it oviduct, or you call it your fallopian tube, and that's where fertilization does what takes place. Wow. So that's even the next question here. Fertilization takes place in the part labeled I, okay, that is your fallopian tube. Okay, so take note of that. The part labeled IV is the, let's find IV. Okay, IV, of course, this diagram is a bit dicey, but then looking at it, this is the vagina, so this is going to be the word cervix. So IV is the what? IV is the cervix. So the correct answer is option A. Number 50, an association between two organisms in which both derive benefits is called mutualism. Okay, the two of them benefit, and that's mutualism. When one benefits is commensalism. Competition is when two of them struggle for limited resources. Parasitism is when one is gaining and one is being harmed. And saprophytism is when you are feeding, an organism is feeding on dead organisms. So that video I made has a lot of information for you. All these things I mentioned are captured there, so please go back, watch the video. It's going to really help you to do well in your exams. Okay, number 51, the ability of an organism to maintain a steady internal environment is called homeostasis. Okay, a relatively constant internal environment is maintained by the process of homeostasis. And then number 52, which of the following is an example of a reflex action? A reflex action is an involuntary action. You don't think about it, it just happens, and basically most times is to protect the body from harm. Okay, so that is sneezing as an example. Remember, all reflexes are involuntary, but not all involuntary actions are what? Are reflexes. And then we are rounding up now. The ability of an organism, 53, to respond to stimulus obviously is irritability. A trait that is well expressed in the presence of another is called a dominant trait. Okay, so you have a dominant one. When you have a dominant gene, it is expressed in the presence of a recessive gene, but the one that is not expressed is the recessive gene. So the correct answer here is dominant. Recessive have to be alone, together, to be expressed. If I have capital T, small t, this is there, this is also there, but the capital is expressed because it's a dominant one. The small one can only be expressed when they are together, when I have small t. So take note of that. So the correct answer is B, dominant. Which of the following is not a type of fingerprint? So the correct one answer here is simple. There is no simple fingerprint. The other ones are established forms. Okay, and then 56, the ecological instrument used to measure light intensity is basically light intensity is measured by the photometer. Okay, option D. Anemometer, barometer, hygrometer, putter. You need to know what they measure, so check that out as in a coming exam. And then 57, the study of heredity and variation is known as genetics. So that's the correct answer, option D. Study of heredity, transmission of genes from parents to offspring, and then variation, differences between individuals of the same species. Okay, and then number 58, the cell organelles that stores hereditary material is basically the nucleus. So that's that. And then number 59, use this diagram to answer. So let's see what they have there. The genotype of the parents is, so this is the genotype of the parents, capital R small r and capital R small r. So because they are two different letters like what we had here, we say they are what? Heterozygous. So that's the correct answer. And then here, the phenotypic ratio of the offspring. The phenotypic ratio simply means what you will see. What they're giving us here is the genotype, but you know that this is going to be phenotypically, you would see this person as carrying the dominant form, you see this person and this person as carrying the dominant form. So that's what you see. So the correct ratio is going to be 3:1. This is going to be the only guy that is going to be carrying the recessive form. So outwardly you would have 3:1 as your answer. Did you try them yourselves? If you tried, what was your answer? How many do you think you got correctly? So thank you very much. That's the review of basic review for 2023 NECO questions. So expect this kind of questions as you move into the examination hall. Okay, if you missed anything, go about, pause the video, go over it over and over again. And if you have your concerns, you can share them with us in the comment section. Okay, so thank you very much. If you are yet to subscribe, subscribe, like, share this video to so many persons so that everybody can all pass together. I'll do a review of the theory just almost immediately, so check out for it immediately as you finish watching this video. It's going to be coming up in your timeline. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best in your exams. I pray you do well and be rewarded heavily for your efforts. Bye for now.